My mother spent her final months planting a beautiful garden outside her bedroom window. After she passed, I continued tending it in her honor. One morning, I stepped outside and found my neighbor standing there, digging it up. When I screamed, "What are you doing?" he coldly replied, "The HOA voted." It was an eyesore. No vote had ever happened. He had just decided it was his right. I fell to my knees in the dirt, clutching my mother's last gift as he tossed her roses into a trash bag like garbage. I live in Hewitt, Texas, just outside Waco. It's a town where people still wave at you at stop signs, but also where the HOA acts like the FBI over stupid stuff like mismatched curtains. When my mom got sick, I dropped everything and moved back into her house. She was fighting lung cancer. Stage 4. Doctors gave her 6 months. She made it 2 years. In those last months, she found peace in gardening. It gave her something to do besides waiting to die. Every day, even when she could barely walk, we'd sit outside. She'd pick the spots I'd dig. Together, we made a little paradise just outside her bedroom window. Roses, daisies, lilacs, even some bluebonnets. It wasn't just a garden. It was our goodbye. When she passed, I swore I would keep that garden alive as long as I lived. I never thought I'd have to fight for it. It happened in July. I woke up around 7:30 a.m. The heat was already thick. I grabbed my coffee and headed out to water the flowers. I stopped dead in my tracks. Brett Mallory, HOA board member, retired insurance salesman, absolute bastard, was standing in the garden. My mom's garden. He had a shovel in his hand and a trash bag already half full of uprooted plants. For a second, I thought maybe it was a mistake. Maybe he was confused. Maybe he thought he was helping. Then he pulled out one of Mom's prize roses, roots and all, and tossed it into the bag like garbage. I dropped my mug. I screamed, "What are you doing?" He barely glanced at me, wiped his forehead and said, like he was telling me the weather, "The HOA voted." It was an eyesore. Cleaning it up. I felt like the ground dropped out from under me. I stuttered, "There was no vote. I live here. You can't just..." He cut me off. "Emergency meeting. Majority rules. Should have stuck to backyard plants." He pulled out another plant. A lilac bush my mom picked out herself, days before she died. I couldn't even speak. I just dropped to my knees, hands shaking, trying to scoop up the ruined flowers. He finished in about 5 minutes. Tossed the trash bag into the back of his brand new Ford F-150. Didn't say a word. Didn't apologize. He just drove off, leaving tire tracks through the wet dirt. I sat there for a long time, hands full of broken rose stems, crying like a child. And right then, I made myself a promise. He would pay. I didn't know how yet, but it would happen, no matter what it cost me. First thing I did was pull out every HOA document my mom kept. Newsletters, meeting minutes, bylaws, nothing in there about gardens, nothing about emergency meetings, and absolutely no record of any recent vote. Brett lied. Next, I pulled the public records from the town hall. It's boring, but it's all there. Every HOA meeting has to be recorded by law. Still no vote. I printed it all out. A whole binder full. Then I started knocking on doors. Turns out, I wasn't the only one Brett had crossed. Mrs. Morales, sweet lady, early 80s, had been fined $200 last year for having a bird bath in her yard. Mr. Evans had to tear down a treehouse he built for his grandkids because Brett said it was unsightly. Another woman, Miss Tanner, said Brett once called the cops because her Halloween decorations were too scary. People hated him. They just never fought back because Brett scared them. But now, after what he did to my mom's garden, they were ready. We gathered signatures. You needed 75 homeowners to force an HOA board election. We got 110. We called an emergency meeting. It was beautiful. Everyone showed up. Even folks who hadn't been to a meeting in 10 years. Brett showed up late. Tried to act like it was no big deal. wore that stupid smug grin he always had. He started talking about maintaining property values and protecting the aesthetic of the neighborhood. Then Mrs. Morales stood up, hands shaking, voice trembling. She said, "You called the angel statue on my late husband's grave trash. And now you tore up a dying woman's garden." The room went dead silent. You could hear Brett swallow. We voted 108 to 2 to remove him. The 2 votes for him? His wife and his son, who didn't even live there full-time. He was out, but I wasn't finished. Through some digging and a few tips from neighbors who didn't mind gossiping, I found out Brett had been using a small patch of city-owned land behind his house as his private garden for years. Planting trees, putting up benches, claiming it was part of his property. It wasn't. He hadn't paid taxes on it. Ever. Turns out, Texas law says if no taxes are paid for 3 years, the city can sell the land. I filed the paperwork. Paid the $1 fee. Filed it with the county clerk. That patch of land? It was now legally mine. The next morning, I showed up with surveyors. They hammered bright orange flags into the ground, all around the little garden Brett thought was his. Then we installed a huge wooden sign, "Community Garden," in loving memory of Peggy, flowers always welcome. Gnomes encouraged. By the next weekend, half the neighborhood was out there planting flowers, setting up lawn chairs, painting birdhouses. And every day, Brett had to sit on his porch and watch it. I knew Brett was making side money fixing up insurance claims for neighbors. Charging cash under the table. Completely illegal. One call to the Texas Department of Insurance. One anonymous tip about unlicensed claim work. 3 weeks later, he got slapped with fines big enough to choke him. They froze his accounts. Opened an investigation into possible fraud. I heard from a friend that Brett tried to fight it, said he was just helping neighbors, but the state didn't care. Money is money. Fraud is fraud. His brand new truck got repossessed. His credit tanked. His house went on the market by Christmas. The day he loaded the last box into the U-Haul, I was sitting out front, planting more roses in my mom's garden. He didn't look at me. Not once. I didn't wave. I didn't smile. I just kept digging. For a while, I thought that was the end of it. Brett was gone. His house sat empty, a for sale sign leaning crookedly in the front yard. My mother's garden bloomed bigger than ever. Kids played in the new community garden. Old folks came by just to sit on the bench with her name on it. But like a bad stain, Brett wasn't done with me yet. It started small. One morning, I came outside and found my tires slashed. Deep, clean cuts. Front and back. No note. No warning. I knew it was him. No one else hated me enough. No one else had a reason. I filed a police report. They shrugged. No proof, they said. Could be random. Sure. The next week, someone tossed a dead squirrel onto my front porch. Its neck was broken. 2 days later, a brick crashed through my kitchen window in the middle of the night. No note. No graffiti. Just destruction. I installed cameras the next day. High-res, motion-activated. No way to miss anything now. 3 nights later, just past midnight, the cameras caught him. Brett. Wearing a baseball cap low over his face, but there was no mistaking the gut, the limp, the way he moved. He snuck up to my truck with a screwdriver in hand. Trying to pop my tires again, they showed up fast this time. I shoved the footage in their faces. Brett was arrested at 2:17 a.m. on charges of vandalism, trespassing, and destruction of property. He posted bail by morning, but the mugshot hit Facebook before he even got home. Small town. Word travels fast. Mrs. Morales sent me a plate of cookies with a note that said, "Justice tastes sweet." But Brett wasn't just angry. He was desperate. Through a friend at the courthouse, I found out that losing his house had screwed him deeper than anyone thought. He had cashed out his retirement early to buy the house and the truck. When he lost both, he had almost nothing left. Now he was facing charges that could stick. I thought he'd back off. I thought wrong. For emotional distress, harassment, and defamation of character. It was laughable. His lawyer must have been the bottom of the barrel because the paperwork was sloppy, full of typos, and based on zero real evidence. But lawsuits cost money to fight, even stupid ones. He knew that. He was trying to bleed me dry. He wanted to break me the way I had broken him. I didn't have fancy lawyers. I didn't have deep pockets. But I had something better, the truth. And a whole neighborhood willing to back me up. Mrs. Morales, Mr. Evans, Miss Tanner, the new HOA board. Even folks who barely knew me wrote statements about Brett's harassment, his destruction, his lies. I filed a countersuit, malicious prosecution, and damages for vandalism. The court date was set for April. Meanwhile, Brett was spotted sleeping at a rundown motel off the highway. The mighty had fallen hard. It came from someone I never expected. Brett's own wife. One evening, I was out watering the garden when a woman approached me. Early 60s, tired eyes, hair pulled back tight. She introduced herself. I'm Mary, Brett's soon-to-be ex-wife. I didn't know what to say. She just nodded like she understood and said, I want to help you. Turns out, Mary had had enough. Brett had drained their savings. Lied to her about the house. About the side business. About everything. He was abusive, she said. Controlling. Angry. And now, desperate, she handed me a manila envelope. Inside were copies of old emails, letters, even recorded phone calls. Proof that Brett had lied to the HOA about votes. Proof he had bullied neighbors for years. Even evidence he had falsified claims for money, insurance fraud, plain and simple. Enough to bury him if it ever went to court. Mary said she didn't want a dime from him. She just wanted her life back. And she wanted to see him fall. I took the envelope inside and sat at the kitchen table, staring at it. I thought about my mom, how she used to say, some battles are worth fighting to the end. This was one of them. I made copies of everything Mary gave me, kept the originals locked in a fireproof box. Then I called the county prosecutor's office, told them I had new evidence about an ongoing fraud investigation, told them I had documents, told them I was willing to testify. They scheduled a meeting the next week. 3 days before a court hearing, I found a letter taped to my front door. No stamp, no envelope, just scotch taped to the glass. It read, drop everything. Walk away. Last warning. No signature. But I knew who it was. I turned it over to the police. They added it to the pile. Didn't matter anyway. I wasn't backing down. I wore my mom's locket under my shirt. It gave me strength. Brett looked like hell when he walked into the courtroom. Thinner. Hollow-eyed. Hair uncombed. He didn't have a lawyer this time. Couldn't afford one, I guess. The judge, a hard-faced woman named Judge Franklin, didn't waste time. She ripped into Brett's claims first. Said there was zero evidence I had harassed him. That his emotional distress was his own doing. She dismissed his lawsuit on the spot. Then it was my turn. My lawyer, a local guy named Walt who worked for cheap, laid it all out. The vandalism, the trespassing, the lies, the threats. Then he pulled out the big guns. Mary's evidence. Emails showing Brett forging HOA votes. Letters showing him threatening homeowners. Audio clips of him admitting to side deals for insurance money. Judge Franklin's face got tighter with every piece of evidence. When we finished, she leaned back in her chair, looked over her glasses at Brett, and said, "You're lucky this is a civil court today, Mr. Mallory. But rest assured, criminal charges are coming." The judge ordered him to pay damages for the vandalism, attorney's fees, and court costs. He couldn't pay. He didn't have anything left. The court put a lien on any future income he earned. Garnished what little Social Security he had coming. Meanwhile, the prosecutor's office moved forward with fraud charges. They raided the motel room he was living in. Found more documents. Fake claims. Fake checks. He was arrested again. This time, there would be no bail. It came a month later. I got a call from the real estate agent handling Brett's old house, the one he lost. She said, "I know this might be awkward, but would you like to buy it?" The bank was selling it cheap. Dirt cheap. I thought about it. Thought about everything that had happened. And then I said yes. Buying Brett's old house felt strange at first. The place was empty, cold. The walls still smelled like cheap cigarettes and mildew. There were holes punched into a few of the doors. Cabinets ripped off hinges. Like he had tried to destroy it before he left. Still, I wasn't scared of ghosts. Not even his. I didn't move in right away. I turned it into something else. A place for the community. A place for the people Brett had hurt. We set up meetings there. Garden planning. Book clubs. Free tutoring for kids. The backyard, the one he'd once guarded like a king, became a second community garden, full of sunflowers, tomatoes, and marigolds. Every part of it screamed life. Not death like Brett had left behind. Meanwhile, Brett sat in county jail. The trial dragged on for months. Mary testified. So did Mrs. Morales. So did I. Brett tried to blame everyone else. Tried to say he was just doing what's best for the neighborhood. Nobody believed him. He was sentenced to 5 years for fraud. And another year for vandalism and harassment. He left court that day in handcuffs, head down. No family there to see him off. Not even Mary. Winning didn't feel like I thought it would. It wasn't sweet. It wasn't clean. It was messy. Sad. Heavy. I had won, but not without losing parts of myself too. I caught myself sometimes late at night, wondering if my mom would have wanted it this way. She believed in standing up for what's right. But she also believed in mercy. I hadn't left room for that. Maybe I became just as bitter and angry as Brett in the end. Maybe that's what real revenge costs. One spring afternoon, I found a small package at my door. No return address. Inside was a tiny ceramic angel. Hand-painted, faded with age. And a note, "For your mother's garden." I'm sorry I didn't stand up sooner. Mary, I placed the angel right under the biggest rose bush in the garden. The one Mom had planted with her own hands. The one Brett had tried to destroy but couldn't. And for the first time in a long time, I sat in the dirt, leaned back, and let myself cry, not from anger, but from something softer. Maybe forgiveness. Maybe something close to peace.